All right, guys. So I am making this video because there's been an interesting debate going on Twitter, right? And in conservative circles about flipping deep blue congressional districts. Yes, that means running Republican candidates in deep blue congressional districts, mainly like inner cities, right? And trying to flip them red in order to get seats in the House and to take back the majority come 2022. Now, again, this debate has been sparked by the drama basically going on between Candace Owens and Kim Klacik. And I want to say right off the bat, I do not have an opinion on what's going on between those two. This video is not about that at all, right? It is simply my opinion on what is the best way to go about this and just giving you guys the facts in reference to my opinion on flipping deep blue states. And I am not targeting anybody specifically. Now, I'm going to use some examples to prove my point, but that's not saying anything bad about that person. That's not saying anything negative. That's not saying that person shouldn't run. That's not saying that person shouldn't try. I am just trying to make people more informed and telling you guys how I would think about donating to political candidates if the goal is to flip certain seats red so the GOP can take back the House. That's purely what it's about. This is a political analysis and political strategy video, right? And this is fascinating stuff that is beyond whatever drama is out there on social media. Again, I just want to make it clear. I have no dog in that fight. I'm not saying anything about that, but it is an interesting debate. So with that being said, I have some opinions on this, right? As we all have to understand that this world has finite resources, right? Our country has finite resources. People have finite amounts of money, right? So we want to make sure that if we're sending our money to political candidates, that we're sending our money to a place that is going to be used effectively and efficiently, right? One of the things we complain about when it comes to the Democrats, right, is that they want to spend a whole bunch of money, but they don't want to do it efficiently, right? They do a whole lot of wasteful spending. And the last thing that you want is a whole bunch of Republicans doing a whole bunch of wasteful spending, sending money to candidates, not really having a real shot at winning, right? So with that being said, I do want to start off my analysis here with money, right? Talking about money. So let's look at the most famous candidate that was running last year in Baltimore, Kim Klacik. Again, this video is not about her. It's not anything negative about her. It is simply political analysis in regards to the amount of money that she raised versus the incumbent Democrat, whom, again, this is a deep blue district, okay, that Kim ran in. Now, Kim raised about $8 million, okay? Her Democrat opponent raised about $1 million. Okay, so Kim outraised her Democrat opponent almost by what, 8 times as much? Okay, she raised 8 times as much money. Now, raising that much money resulted in her losing by over 100,000 votes. She only got 28% of the vote, while the Democrat incumbent got 71.6% of the vote. Now, again, that's not discouraging her to run. That's not doing anything like that. I'm just giving you guys the facts, right? There was a lot of money spent on this race, and she didn't come anywhere close to winning, right? To flipping that seat. Now, that doesn't mean she shouldn't keep trying, but I just want people to be aware of the facts. Now, let's also talk about Joe Collins, who ran against Maxine Waters. He raised a lot of money to try to flip her seat red. Again, I mean, listen, if you can get some of these people out of office, the Democrat Party, you know, I'm 100% on board with that, right? I just think that there's a certain way you have to go about it, and I'm going to explain that, but let me pull my point here. Joe Collins raised $10 million, right? $10.5 million. Maxine Waters almost raised $2 million. She raised 1.8. So it looks like Joe Collins raised almost 5 times as much as Maxine Waters and ended up only getting 28% of the vote. He lost by the same margin that Kim Klacik lost by. I mean, they got blown out, right? And most of that money, guys, a majority of that money goes towards political consultants, right? It goes towards these fancy ads that they made that help them go viral and help them become essentially household names in the conservative movement. Again, that's not to say that they shouldn't have ran. That's not to say any of that stuff. It's not even saying anything negative. I'm just saying most of that money, that's what it went to. It went to political consultants, right? Now, there's a way to actually go about flipping seats, right? And there's actually some political science behind this, as there's this measure called the Cook Partisan Voting Index. And this voting index tells you essentially how much more on average a district is Republican or Democrat than the rest of the country on a national level, right? All right, guys, let's take a look at the 2021 PVI map just to see if we can get some insights, right? And for me to prove my point and help you guys have a better understanding of how this stuff works. Now, this is Kim's district, MD07, right? Now, in order for a seat to be flippable, it has to have a PVI score of R+5, which means it's a little bit more Republican than average, right? And D+5, which means that it's a little bit more Democratic than average. But it's not so Democrat or Republican that somebody challenging from the opposite party couldn't flip that seat, right? That's what it means. Now, if it has a score a little bit, on the outside of that range, right? Let's say is, R+10 or D+10. Does that mean that the seat is still flippable? Sure, but it's just going to require a whole lot of work and a little bit of luck, right, in order to flip that seat. Now, it's not extremely likely, but it's in the realm of possibility. Now, Kim's district has a PVI score of D+27, which means that it is extremely more Democratic than the national average, guys, which means that any Republican running in that district essentially does not have a shot, okay? They don't have that much of a chance, right? Unless, again, a miracle happens. Now, again, that's not to discourage Kim from running in 2022. That's not me saying that at all or saying anything negative about her. I just want people to understand the odds here, okay? That's why I want people to understand the math. There's math behind this stuff, okay? Now, a seat that's probably more flippable might be Cindy Axe's seat, right? Iowa District 3, in which it has a PVI score of R+3, which means it's a little bit more Republican, okay? But it's not that Republican. She's a Democrat, right? If a Republican runs in this district in 2022, they could reasonably flip that seat, right? As you can see in the past presidential elections, Trump barely won by a razor thin margin, 0.1% in 2020, and he also won in 2016, right, versus Clinton. So this is basically a swing district, right? So that means that if you put money and resources behind this district, it increases your chances of winning substantially, right? Versus putting money and resources behind a district that is extremely deep blue, okay? Because those voters just vote Democratic. You see what I'm saying? It is what it is. So those are the districts, guys, that you probably want to put your money behind, right? If you're thinking about donating to a political candidate, on a national level, just to try to flip these seats, then you want to send money to candidates that actually have a real chance. That way your dollar is going to go a lot further. Now, let me give you guys an example, a funny example of a light blue district that was won by a Republican. Okay, this is a hilarious one. You guys are going to like this. California District 25, right, which is right outside Kevin McCarthy's district, right? The PVI is D+3. Guess who ran in this race and only got 6% of the vote? Cenk Uygur, right? Cenk Uygur, okay, the buffoon / socialist from TYT, right? He tried to run in this basically moderate district, right? This is a moderate district. This is a light blue district. And because he's too far left, he had no chance of winning whatsoever, despite, again, having a national profile, right? You would think he would have a leg up in terms of popularity. Is in California, is in the LA area. You would think the dude would be able to win, but no. Actually, Mike Garcia, a Republican, won this seat. Again, this is D+3, right? So it's slightly more Democratic. You see how this thing works, guys? You can sometimes be too far left or too far right, too extreme in your party to win in a moderate district, or you can be not extreme enough, right, on the outer edges enough, depending on how blue or red that district is. Cenk Uygur is an example of somebody that was too extreme even for a slightly blue district, right? He was way too left, and a Republican actually won that seat. Now, who is a candidate that I would like to see seat be flipped, right? Cori Bush. Cori Bush. I would like nothing in the world more than to see Cori Bush lose her seat. So let's see if it's possible, right? As she is Missouri District 1, Cori Bush, her PVI score is D+29, which basically means that for all my hopes and dreams that Cori Bush would lose her seat to a Republican, it is nothing but hopes and dreams, and that's probably all it will ever be, okay? Because that district is extremely, extremely, extremely blue. The only candidates that probably have a chance of beating Cori Bush would be somebody that is either, a Democrat establishment candidate that can significantly outraise her, or somebody that's running to the left of her. Okay, like for example, let's take a look at AOC's district in which she demonstrated this concept back when she first got elected, right? In which she beat the incumbent Democratic candidate, Joe Crowley, right? Who was super establishment. Her district score is D+25. Which again means that any Republican that's running against AOC probably does not have a chance of winning. They don't really have a realistic shot of winning. The only way that you'll be able to beat AOC is if you either run to the left of her, okay, right, which would make you a communist, or you run as a Democrat establishment candidate. However, again, because this is extremely blue, AOC probably has a stronghold on this district. It would probably be extremely hard to flip this seat, right? Whether you're establishment Democrat or you're a Republican, doesn't matter. So with that being said, guys, again, I'm not trying to discourage, people from running or trying. I'm just pointing out the math and the political science behind this stuff, because there is a science behind this. And I just want people to understand where their money is going. And I want people's money to be used efficiently, right? To actually accomplish the goal. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never run, right, as a Republican in a deep blue seat. And I'm going to tell you guys a circumstance in which I think that would be acceptable, and it may be worth putting money behind that person. But first, Corinne Tatum, Officer Tatum's wife, actually posted this chart on her Instagram in which she has already kind of outlined, well, this actually comes from NRCC, but they've actually already outlined the districts that can be flipped, right? The target districts that can be flipped. The more money and resources, the more likely those districts are actually going to flip, right? So they've already outlined a list of flippable districts. So I want you guys to understand that this stuff is already kind of a science. So with that being said, guys, how would I evaluate who I would send money to personally? If I'm going to send money to a candidate with the intentions of flipping the seat from blue to red, first and foremost, I would send them to districts that are actually winnable. That's it. That's what I would do. I would follow that index. And if it's in range, then I would probably put money into it. That's what I would focus on. Now, that does not mean that candidates, red candidates that are running in deep blue districts should not get attention and should not get resources at all. That's not what it means. What it means is that those candidates have to be evaluated and scrutinized more, guys. Right? That means that in a situation like that, I would consider donating to a candidate, right? A red candidate running in a deep blue district, if that red candidate is a established voice and has an established presence and has shown that they can be elected and to win elections as a Republican in some type of either local election, town hall, city council. If they've already shown the ability to do that, if they're popular people, if they're respected in their district, then I would put money and resources into that person. I would not put money and resources into somebody that's random, that has never actually run for political office, that doesn't have any experience, that is not popular in their own district. I just wouldn't do it, because guys, anybody can get up and pay somebody to make a fancy video ad, right? Saying how bad the Democrats are running their district. Again, no disrespect to people that have done that. Obviously, that was an amazing campaign strategy and has been adopted by a ton of people. I think it's great. But what I'm saying is that people can't be fooled by that, right? They have to look deeper than just that ad and say, okay, can this person actually win? Because it doesn't matter how much money you put into that person, as we've seen with Kim Klacik and Joe Collins. You can outraise your opponent by, 8 to 10 times more. But if that district is deep blue and you're not popular in that district and they don't have an established record in that district, you're not going to flip that district. All that money is going to go to political consultants. It's going to be money that's wasted. Okay, when all that money could have been spent on districts and seats that are actually flippable. So like I said, with that being said, guys, I just want to make it clear. If there is a candidate running in a deep blue district that's, wants to flip it red, I would thoroughly evaluate the background of that person and make sure that there's somebody that's actually respected and known in that community, right? So, I think people got to be aware of that. And this is why I'm doing that video, because I wanted to chime in my opinion in regards to this question of, where should money and resources go in regards to taking back the House in 2022. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.